Yeah, so when we first get them, they're like around 5 months old. They're just weaned from their mothers and have just went through the whole program. And they're only like 2 pounds when we first get them. They're extremely small. So she'll go through a quarantine, and then slowly, once she starts getting more comfortable with us and everything and her environment, then we'll slowly start adding on encounters, just like 10, 15-minute encounters, just 3 or 4 throughout the day, just to slowly start acclimating her. And Flash, he has a fully booked schedule today. The time that he has scheduled is with you guys from 10 to 10:30, and people right after you guys from 10:30 to 11. He's done for the rest of the day, and that's his schedule fully booked up. Yeah. So that's the only time that we schedule his encounters, because that's the only time we can guarantee he's going to be coming down. Yeah. The rest of the day, he kind of comes and goes as he pleases. We could be on another encounter with another sloth, and he's kind of like pecking at the door frame there trying to get his stuff in the door. So we let him out here just to kind of come and go as he pleases. Occasionally he'll want snacks throughout the day as well. And then Zoe, if she were to be fully booked for the entire day, now we hold her and she does actively, seek out human interaction. So if she were to be fully booked for the day, she'd have 2 hours of encounter, and then she'd be done. So she'd have an hour in the morning and an hour in the afternoon with like 3 or 4 hour break in between. Yeah. And so we always want to keep it to it's at the point now where when I go in there and she's awake and she sees me coming for her, she's already reaching out because she knows that that's what she's going to have, coming is some snuggles. Very cute. And that's what she genuinely enjoys doing. And to become an ambassador sloth, which is what she is, they have to meet 2 requirements. They have to genuinely enjoy and actively seek out human interaction. And if they don't do either one of those, then they don't end up going to a facility like that, or like this. And so that's what happened with the last sloth that we thought we were going to get. We wanted another girl, and about a month and a half ago, she was almost ready. She was weaned from her mother and went through that final ambassador program. She was raised in the same way that Zoe and Dash both were, but once she was weaned, the breeder kind of started picking up that she would tolerate being held, much more than obviously a different animal or a different sloth would that didn't go through that same program. But she didn't really actively seek out human interaction like Zoe does. So in the afternoons when I'm cleaning up her enclosure, I could just be in the same room as her, and she's climbing through those branches at me, reaching out, trying to get me to pick her up. And I can't turn my back on her because otherwise she'd be on me. But we want it to be like that for them, where they do genuinely enjoy it. Because if it's enjoyable for them, then it'll be enjoyable for us. But if they're stressed out and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm tired of being held, then we're going to know that. And so we ended up just not having her. And she went to a facility similar to where we got Flash, where she's just going to be observation for the most part, just minimal handling. So. Did you just take a quick cat nap, buddy? See if we can break out some incentive over here. We've got some rice mixture that he doesn't necessarily need, but he does enjoy it. And so when he's kind of having a slower morning where he's over in the corner, break out this rice and he'll come back over for us pretty quickly. That's funny. Nutritionally, he doesn't need this. It's got extra protein in it than he actually needs, but it is not going to hurt him. And he gets his protein, they're sloths, so they have extremely slow metabolisms and extremely low protein requirements. So their protein requirements are met by 2 hard bulldogs a week, and that's all they need. So this is more than what he actually needs, but he does really enjoy it.
He's like, but it tastes good, so it's fine.
Like I said, they do have a really good sense of smell and hearing. Sometimes when I open up the fridge, he already knows that I'm going for the good stuff, and he'll come back over. And bananas are his absolute favorite. So a lot of times if he's having a slow time where he's up at the top of his enclosure not wanting to come down, I'll just take a banana in there and start blowing it up towards him, and he will change his mind and come back down for us. Here, bud.
Got a snack trick.
So if you want to hold this bowl, you can. You can feed it just like that.
Oh my gosh.
That's cool.
I just keep thinking of that scene from the Killer Sloth movie though, where he came off the banister. Have you seen that movie? It's a. Do you remember what it's called? It's an awful movie. It is so bad. It's basically the CGI sloth lives with these sorority girls, and he was like taken from a farm or something, by one of the girls, and like he found out through Facebook. And so he was upset because he liked his farm and not the sorority house, so he decided to kill all of them. But it's the worst movie I've ever seen. We had to skip like half of it.
Oh my
but
goodness. I mean, the sloth is like flying through, like jumping towards people and everything. It's crazy.
it's so funny.
So you may be able to see as he's opening and closing his mouth there, those 4 really sharp canines he has on the sides. And that's the first teeth that you'll come to in a sloth mouth. They don't have any teeth in the very front. And so a lot of times when we hold Zoe, you may experience it as well. She explores a lot with her mouth like a toddler. So in the very front of her mouth, she's got, just gums. And a lot of times she'll just kind of gum on somebody's arm just to figure out what they are or what they've got. Now, if she does go to do that, we do just move our hands away because we don't want to ever teach her that that's okay to do.
Yeah.
But she does it to herself a lot too. So she'll actually put her own claw in her mouth and kind of like nibble on her own claw. Especially if she's already ate all of her food and we're trying to tell her there's no more food.
Yeah.
She's like, well, I'll just eat myself.
And the after violence.
They have those 4 pretty sharp canines, and then in the back, their molars are actually all pointed. They're not flat like ours are, and those are really beneficial for them for grinding up leaves. So in the wild, their diet is like 95% leaf material, and leaves are a lot easier to grind up than they are to chomp up like with flat teeth. So.
There's the rest of
Welcome
the
to
rice.
try to feed him any more of that.
Okay.
Want some more green beans now?
He said no, I want rice.
I know, you do want that rice now. No.
We got the good stuff, now I'm spoiled.
He's like, he said please.
And you can kind of see those pupils, how tiny pinpoint pupils those are. They say like that all the time. They do have a really narrow field of vision, so they don't really see something until it's like right in front of them. They don't really have any peripheral vision, which is why they can be startled pretty easily. And for a sloth in the wild, anything that's moving by it or towards it at any rate of speed is bad news and they want to get away from it. So their kind of first line of defense is to just get to the very end of that branch, away from whatever it is that could possibly be coming after them, and just evade that threat. And so a lot of times, if it actually is something that's threatening the sloth, like a jaguar or an ocelot or something like that, their goal is to get to the end of that branch, and if that cat is daring enough to go out to the end of that branch after the sloth, it's kind of best case scenario if they both ended up falling to the floor. So it's going to break under both of their weight. And for the sloth, that's no big deal because on average, the sloth actually will fall out of their tree about once a week. Whether that's due to a miscalculated step where they just go to grab the next branch and they actually grab their own leg, or they're trying to get away from something and they eventually just go out to the end and break that branch. But it's not a big deal for the sloth because they're kind of built like trucks on the inside. You wouldn't think it by looking at them. You'd think that they're pretty fragile, especially the younger ones with those little spindly legs. But when they fall out of the trees, they kind of go pancake mode and just go flat out. And when they land, they have a total of 46 ribs. So that's double what we have.
Wow.
And those ribs go all the way down right up against their hip bones. So it's kind of a protective casing for their internal organs and everything. There's also a lot of connective tissue that's holding all of their organs right in the right place that they should be, so that when they hit the ground, their bones are extremely flexible, so they just kind of flex under their weight, and they don't really, break any bones or anything like that. And all of the connective tissue that's holding everything right where it's supposed to doesn't really allow for them to get any type of internal damage. So it works out for the sloth, but the cat's probably not going to be as lucky because they're probably going to try to land on all fours, and from falling from a height from 100 plus feet up in the air, because those sarcopia trees can go way high up, they're probably going to break all fours. So that cat's probably going to be laying there for a while. The sloth will just go back in the tree.
Bye-bye.
No.
But the sloth also comes down to the floor of the rainforest once a week as well for a different reason. So they do have a symbiotic relationship with moths that live on their backs that require that sloth to come down to the floor of the rainforest to go to the bathroom once a week, every week, in the same spot that they always go to. And it's not because they're creatures of habit or because they're trying to fertilize their own tree that they're living in, but because of that relationship they have with moths. So it's symbiotic, meaning that they both need each other in order to survive. If the sloth did not have those moths, the sloth wouldn't be able to live, and vice versa. So those moths require direct contact with the sloth in order to be able to transfer over onto them. They can't fly around the environment like other moths can, and the sloths need those moths. So when they come down to go to the bathroom, those moths will come down off of the sloth and lay their eggs in the dung pile of the sloth, and then crawl back up onto the sloth before they lose their ride back to the canopy of the rainforest. And then a week later, those eggs have turned into larvae, and a week after that, the larva has then turned into adult moths that will crawl back up onto the sloth when they go back to the floor of the rainforest. So obviously it works out for the moths because they've got transportation to and from the breeding ground, and they also will feed on the moss and algae that's growing on the back of the sloth. But it's also really beneficial for the sloth as well. So the sloth will actually eat a portion of those moths, and that's the sloth's protein source in the wild. So they do have really low protein requirements, but eating a few of those moths every day will keep that up and meet those requirements. But the most important part of the entire relationship for the sloth is actually that the moth produces a specific bacteria in their waste that when the sloth ingests that, that's the way that they digest their food, is using that bacteria. And so if that bacteria is really sensitive to temperature changes, and so in the rainforest, temperature is always fluctuating, especially during rainstorms and through the night. And so that bacteria is really sensitive to temperature changes. So if the temperature drops, some of that bacteria that's in the sloth's gut could be wiped out, but it's not an issue for a wild sloth because all they do is just lick up some more of that bacteria and they're good to go again. Now for a sloth that has been born and raised in captivity, they get that bacteria the same way. They're not born with it. They have to get it from their mother around day 3 of their lives. They will actually lick the mother in the corners of her mouth because when she eats, her saliva will mix with the food that she's eating, and the baby will smell that and be kind of interested with what's going on with mom. And when they lick that up, they get just a little bit of mom's bacteria to then develop its own bacteria colony. So they get it from mom here in captivity, and they'll keep that the rest of their lives as long as temperature requirements are met and temperature is stable. So for that bacteria to thrive, and the sloths, the temperature has to be around 78 degrees, and that's what it is in here year-round, in this room and in their enclosures. And it has to stay that. It can go up, but it can't really drop much below that, because if it drops below like 75 degrees, that bacteria will slowly start to deteriorate. And if it's kept there, once that bacteria is gone, there's nothing we can do to get that bacteria back up. And they use that to digest their food. So the sloth could pass away from starvation with a full belly of food, just not able to digest it. And so it's a really, really sensitive system that not a lot of people are aware of, which is why we always tell people, especially when we're on a live stream, that owning a sloth as a pet is a terrible idea. You basically have to be, a sloth expert to own a sloth. And unfortunately, a lot of the times, because there's no reputable breeder of sloths in the United States that would sell one of their babies to a member of the general public that had no prior knowledge of owning a sloth. And so a lot of times what happens, since you don't have to have any type of licenses, unfortunately, to own a sloth, those sloths that you can buy on the internet have been taken from the rainforest. And a lot of people aren't aware of that, and that a lot of people learn the hard way that around at the 2.5-week mark, the sloth will pass away, because taken from the rainforest, having all of that natural, moss and algae and all of those moths taken off of them, and then being brought into captivity, all of that bacteria is completely wiped out, even just at the stress of transporting an animal. And then that sloth has a life expectancy of about 2.5 weeks. So it's really unfortunate. A lot of people have to learn the hard way in order to know why we tell people that. But that's kind of the whole premise behind why we do these encounters. It's just tragic. Is to educate the public enough on things like that, because there are no licenses or registrations or anything that you have to have in order to own a sloth. And so for that reason, a lot of people will try to own one, and they can. You can buy a sloth on the internet, but that sloth's not going to have a very long life expectancy whatsoever. Not only for that reason, but there's also been a lot of issues down in places like Costa Rica and Guatemala where they're native to, that people will go down there. And I think the thought process behind it is that if I go down there and interact with a sloth there, I know for a surefire way that those sloths have not been taken from their natural habitat. But actually going down there and supporting businesses that will have, sloth encounters where you can hold a sloth. And usually it's not for a very long time. It's only like a minute that you get to hold the animal. But you are very distracting. But those sloths have been taken from the rainforest. They're still in their natural habitat. You're probably not gonna like that.
We'll see.
But those animals are used repeatedly throughout the day, over and over and over again. And like I said, I already said that with Zoe, if she's fully booked for the day, she only has 2 hours of encounter.
Yeah.
While she would encounter for longer than that if we let her, too much of any good thing can be bad. We always want to keep it to the point where she's looking forward to it. What you want? That probably would not be that good for you, but. Well, this is Georgie.
Hello, Georgie. That's funny. He's biting off and spits it out. That's funny.
So do you guys let like the other animals like hang out with them too? Like
With the
if,
sloths?
yeah.
Well,
Like obviously like
usually-
he's allowed like in here.
He's
but-
allowed in here only when, if no sloths are out or if Flash is out because he can't get to Flash.
Yeah.
But spider monkeys and sloths are from the same area and they're not usually friends. Usually the spider monkeys, obviously they're very playful and they don't mature until they're like 7 years old. So they're like toddlers for the most part of their lives. And they like to play a lot and so they'll actually pester the sloths and just pick at them and pull at them and pull their hair and so sloths aren't really too fond of monkeys, which is why he usually is not allowed. Can you stick with one? Is he allowed to be eating this?
Yeah, it won't hurt him. All right, come on, Georgie, let's go see people.
No. Bye-bye, Georgie.
His turn.
That's funny. He's like, bye. That's so funny.
He's Jeez.
He said he got tired.
I'll be able to break out some more rock. Yeah, we got just a little bit more time with Flash.
Sorry, we're always trying to figure out how to make things better, and sometimes people get to be guinea pigs.
You're fine.
Flash.
He's debating.
He said maybe eventually.
One eternity later.
They do move faster than what I expected.
Yeah. Yeah, and he can